Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am. Good
Good
evening.
evening, madam.
Good evening.
Good evening.
By playing games, you can artificially speed up your learning curve to develop the right kind of thought process, which we all know. But for years, we had been hearing our parents say, पढ़ता नहीं है, खेलता रहता है, खेल में बहुत ज्यादा ध्यान है. The use of games dates back to antiquity. For example, the oldest board games was found in China around 3000 BC. Some ethnographers are convinced that it was education that was the reason for creating many games. A very good example may be chess, which was used as a typical simulation 2000 years ago. It aimed at preparing soldiers for the battles, among other things. You see, children who play chess are by default creative. They are logical reasoners. They are patient. They have great critical thinking skills. The complex and multifaceted nature of teaching learning requires a rich repertoire of teaching methods. We all know game-based learning in simple terms is the use of gaming with educational goals that support a child's development and growth. It has been proved that game-based learning promotes certain very critical skills like analytical thinking, logical reasoning, team spirit, collaboration, problem solving, and you may go on and on. I was speaking to a parent and he was talking about Sudoku, Lego Tower, and Scrabble, how these games have helped his child to build on various skills like communication, logical reasoning, patience, pattern, etc., etc. Now, without spilling the beans, as I always say, and a lot of people say this is my very favorite phrase, let me quickly come and introduce our panels. Today, we have with us Dr. P. I'm so sorry. Today, we have with us Ms. Indu Yadav, Principal, Lotus Valley School. Dr. P. K. Giridharan, Professor of Mechanical Engineering, Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham. We have with us Ms. Kirti Tandon, Principal, St. Xavier's High School. And our very important critical link in the education system, we have with us Ms. Poshali, a teacher from Ramesh International School, and she brings with her her student, Mr. Tashu. This webinar is hosted by Edudevs School of Inspired Teaching and Learning in association with Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham. It is a part of a web series on futuristic education. And today, we deliberate upon gaming as a pedagogical tool. We start with our ice-breaking round, and without much delay, and in the order, the way I have introduced our panelists, I directly start with asking you, what do you think of game-based learning? Do you think it can be adapted in the Indian school supporting our curriculum, where we talk about the never-ending struggle of educators trying to finish the curriculum or trying to finish the syllabus? Yes, Ms. Indu Yadav.
Okay, so thank you very much once again for inviting me, and I'm really happy to be here with this erudite panel. And also, I can see the student here. We can get a good perspective from the student as to what students feel about what we are talking. And I think they are the end users, so to say, and they are the ones who are going to give us a feedback. So at the outset, I mean, since we are talking to educators and the panel also, is quite well known. And first of all, I think we need to question ourselves and find out what is the purpose of education, right? So when we say that, okay, we are educating our children in our schools, what is the purpose? I think the purpose is very clear. It's becoming clearer by the year. That we are not really educating our children only for the purpose of scoring marks. We are educating them because we want them to be future ready, right? We want them to learn certain skills, whether it's collaboration, it's critical thinking, as you pointed out, it's about problem solving, it's about learning to have a worldview and have the knowledge and apply that knowledge in the real life situations, right? And many more, right? So we are preparing children for the future. We are making them future ready. Now, why game-based learning? So, while this has become a rage these days, everybody is talking about gamification, everybody is talking about gaming, game-based learning. But, it is a scientifically proven fact that through games, our brains grow, right? So there are three areas of our brains which grow as a result of gaming. So that is, first is prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for analyzing, for critical thinking, for making choices and making predictions, right? So when children play games, their prefrontal cortex grows. Then second area which gets affected by games is hippocampus, right? So which is responsible for memory, for spatial navigation, for learning, and many more things. And the third area is cerebellum, right? So these three areas grow as a result of gaming. So this is proven in a short duration of just 2 months. So children who play digital games, their brains grow, right? So I think it becomes more than obvious why we should focus on game-based learning and teaching, right? So when we talk about game-based teaching and learning, we are looking at two things here. One is game-based learning and the other one is gaming, right? So when we talk about game-based learning, we are talking about adding games to our teaching process, which we have been doing for many, many years. As you pointed out, when our children were growing up, so there were games like Simon Says, there were role plays, that we used to have. There were word games, there were puzzles, and a whole lot of things, right? So when we add games to our teaching process, to improve learning outcomes, that is game-based learning. So this is game-based learning is basically to make learners learn the concepts well and practice them well. Then the other concept is gamification or gaming, wherein certain elements of games, they are added to the entire content. So it's not just kind of supporting the content, it is the entire content which gets converted into a game. And there are, when I said, game-like elements, which could be points, which could be rewards, which could be levels, which could be challenges, which could be leaderboard, which could be competition, etc., which are added to the content to make it, a game.
Yeah.
So
thank you so much.
Yeah. So I think one could go on and on, but yeah.
Because we will come back to gamification. At the moment, we were focusing on that can. So I'll quickly jump to Ms. Kirti Tandon before I come to Dr. P.K. Giridharan. I will ask you, Kirti, that simple question. Do you think it can be adapted in school? So Ms. Indu has very rightly and bang on explained to us, how the game-based learning works. It does triggers the brain. It does give enough nourishment to, think out of the box and think beyond. My question to you is, do you think it can be adapted to Indian schools supporting our kind of curriculum? And if you could just give us some examples on that. Yes, Kirti.
Definitely. Well, once again, thank you so much. And Indu ma'am, that was a really detailed kind of a thing that you talked about. So maybe the scientific part is being discussed so much. I will come down to the left brain and the right brain things. And I think that works out better for me because I'm a literature person. So, definitely they can be adapted. And we've been doing that. Over a period of time, over many years, there have been series of ways in which we've kind of incorporated games. And games is not only, a particular big kind of a game like a, Scrabble or something that we kind of do it, or maybe snakes and ladders or something like that. But even the thumbs up and the thumbs down that we do is also like a game. When we kind of when we check with the children and we ask them when they used to get tired or bored in a regular classroom, not during the pandemic as well. So the sit up and, stand up and sit down game that we used to play to kind of get them back into the motion was also something very, how we kind of charged up the classroom. And the reason behind all that was, because gaming is a very voluntary activity and it comes automatically to the children. And if you're asking about examples, yes, many examples like gaming. For example, we've also tried to use many a times. Can I give you direct examples of what we've actually worked out on, Divyani? Will that be fine?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
For example, if you are teaching a periodic table and the elements on the periodic table, right? So for one, there are children sitting in front of you. I have seen this in MGIS, that's Mahatma Gandhi International School in Ahmedabad. And I'd like to bring that in because, the people there, the teachers there have kind of got used to this idea of gaming very well. And what they do is they keep flashing the periodic table on the board. And the children are seated in front. And from time to time, they will say, okay, where will magnesium be? And the child has to kind of get up and they switch off. They go and they touch that place, that where it should be. And then suddenly the light comes on and the child realizes whether he was right or wrong. And that is also a way of gaming. And then they would ask where aluminium would fall. And that way, instead of making them mug up the entire table, they would just kind of make it do through a game. And that became such an activity. The other thing that very interesting one that I saw over there was, it was about, again, another science activity. It was about atoms and the neutron and the pure proton. There were two children who were standing in the center and were steady and were not moving at all, whereas the electrons were kind of moving around them. The electrons which were on the inside were moving very slowly because that is how they're supposed to pace. But on the outside, because they're very reactive at that point in time, so they were moving at an extremely quick pace. So in a way, it was a game by which the teacher actually taught them that this is how the protons, neutrons, and electrons act in a, in a setup like this. Another very interesting one, which we've also done here in my school as well, we usually create, on the floor, we have this entire body, human body made out, as kind of a structure. And then we ask them to place the liver at the right place or the heart at the right place. Now, with the kidneys, we've taught them all, but we've never kind of, personally asking, it was a very interesting thing because everybody could not place it correctly. So the heart, we always say, is in the center, slightly tilted towards the left, but the children had to understand that on a human body, where exactly would it lie? So again, that became an activity which was, really, really interesting, and the children enjoyed it. And after a while, they wanted to do that. One more, I'll take half a minute more. Another very interesting is the number line concept that we taught to grade 1. KG and 1. So every child at home during the pandemic was supposed to create a number line. So parents were sent a model and they created a number line on the floor. And the addition was taught through a number line. So the child would be set, the teacher would call out, all right, go to your number line, stand on 0, and now hop and take 3 skips. Where are you? So 1 hop and 3 skips. So 1 plus 3, and he would say 4. And that number line, the children did not let the parents take that out for an entire year, because it was fun. And anytime they wanted to add something, even the homework was given based on that you go stand on the number line and you kind of do all the kind of things or the sums that we're asking you to do like this. So plus and minus concept through games, I think was really, really well taught. I can go on and on, Viviani, just cut me short.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I think I was so hinged to when you were speaking, and I was thinking, I wish we had these kinds of games to, when you were talking about human body, it could be something like a jigsaw time. The periodic table, I remember it was such a task to remember the periodic table. Thank you so much. And I'm sure for our educators who are viewing this show today, I'm sure they would have got enough food for thought to take to their classrooms. Thank you so much, Kirti.
Pleasure.
Moving on to Dr. P.K. Giridharan, who is the professor at the Department of Mechanical Engineering. And so I'm sure, Dr. Giridharan, we will have some very different insights from you regarding how can gaming be integrated with the curriculum, and can it be? And yes. Over to you, Dr. Giridharan.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much. And it is nice that this type of topic is chosen. It's a wonderful topic, right? Appropriate at this time, where because of the COVID, most of them are inside in their houses, and still many of them, the learning is not complete. We are seeing very clearly now because of the pandemic, online learning. All how much it's effective in the present situation. But this type of approach, that is game-based learning, definitely has a different dimension for the. This also can be online or offline. Need not to be in always online also. It can be an offline type of also possible in this one. But it is something which is right now it's badly needed. Another thing is one of the specialty of this program, this type of topic is that this type of pedagogy is that now all of the students. I think all students are here, friend. Most of them are all busy with their own mobiles most of the time. They're all either chatting or with the video conferencing or either attending classes or materials. Always there with the mobile, and that such a glue to the mobile. Not because of the passing time, but also regarding their need is there like that for them to have is always continuous to interact with the online, all the media, everything. So now in this aspect, what I want to say is that this gaming as a tool, it has which not normally what other traditional method of teaching will not do. For example, like it introduces goals. Any gaming, if you have, it has some goals, and it have proper interaction will be there, and the feedback, problem-solving competitions, and narrative component will be there, fun learning environment will be there, and also basically it is always engagement. Learners is always engaging the people and also motivating the people also. This also is there built in all the games. So basically, this method of teaching, what happens is that big benefit of this is that it is, even though it is repetitive, but it allows to fail. Because fail, most of the time, all the students fear of failure. Failure means they will try to avoid it, they escape, try to don't attempt that a situation comes. But this failures doesn't have any cost because they have well known that nothing could happen. So this accepting this failure and then trying to improve upon to accomplish the goal. That is where it makes very lovely and make it more funny, more fun. So this is which helps students to literally what I say is normally in this situation where in adults, when you are in class setting arrangements in public settings, very difficult to face the failures and come up and learn. This easily can do in this gaming tools. So this is another big plus point we get it one. Apart from this, it also the games have been designed such a way that it offers enough difficulty to keep it challenging, while still being easy enough for players to win. So that is what makes specialty that everybody is in what level they are, whether in K2 level or K3 level, K12 or college or higher education. Accordingly, they all been designed. So it is very nice that this type of tools will use it effectively. They have been learning, especially you know that in Bloom taxonomy we have call it cognitive domain, we have affective domain, and we also have musculoskeletal domain. We have muscular domain is there. So skeletal muscular domain is there. So these domains are all, if you see the cognitive domain and affective domains are very much well developed in this when you go for this type of gaming tool. Okay. So this is another important plus point regarding when you're going to the psychological aspect of it, when you use this tool as a learning. That one. And one typical example which I want to say is that one of the typical example is that it allows to learn through experimentation and trial and error, which is normally with, practically if you want to do it, if you want to do anything, learn practical instrumentation, will lot of time, effort, and even loss will be there material. But these things will not happen in the gaming environment. So they are able to deliver trial and error method. It doesn't have any cost, but they are using for learning purpose. So there is a very good plus point in using this gaming tool as a pedagogy for learning. And also one typical example is flight simulators. You heard about flight simulators or the vehicle, even who are learning driving lane. They have simulators are there.
So you're a little unclear. Your voice is buffering. You're a little unclear. The last what you said, we've heard about,
The flight simulator. The flight simulator.
Now it's better. The flight. Yes.
And the flight simulator, one example is there. They have been given the trainers, the flight pilots are given training in the flight simulators. So they have been given different situations, different conditions, weather conditions, different altitude. So they have to maneuver it and come it successful and land it one. This is a type of learning, which actually is like gaming, but it's a learning process. So like that, even for
flight simulators.
Yes. Similarly, even I have seen in CVRD in Avadi Defense Lab. They are using a simulator for pattern tank. You know that the tanks are there, military tanks are there. This tank also they were training them in going far in the desert area or in the hilly area, traveling on. That also we have simulator trainings are available. There are challenges, goals, and targets are there. Different level of gaming are there. Targets are there. So they're all basically some learning, but it looks like gaming. So this is what.
All right. So these games that you're talking about, are they age specific? Are they specific to students above a class 9 or
Yes, it is. I told for this is for skill learning. For skill, this type of simulators available. But for the learning environment, learning this thing, we have different levels are there. For even one typical example, another example which I can show is that there is one game called World Peace Gaming.
We'll come back to it, sir. We will once again come back to it. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. To my question to I would move on to Ms. Ushali, and I would want to. Are you there, Ms. Ushali?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Now, good evening. I want to ask you, building upon this, that for years games were tools for learning and continue to do so. We've grown up by the Sudoku or Scrabble or these kinds of games, but the rise in the use of digital devices and learning opportunities online has actually triggered this game-based learning. And with your mobiles and apps coming every day with newer games and the old ones, they are picking up the traditional games. And what is your take on this? And of course, we've heard the principal's perspective when Ms. Kirti was talking about, these kind of all these activities. So I want to take an educator's perspective that number one, how well can they be integrated and can they become a part of a regular teaching learning process and not just a part of an annual day or a project or something like that? Yes, Ushali.
Okay, ma'am. So good evening to all the respected co-panelists. I feel privileged that I have been invited to this August gathering, and I would like to congratulate the organizer for arranging this discussion on such an important topic. Ma'am, Kirti ma'am, whatever you have said actually it is we are doing in the school. And yes, that game-based learning is a teaching method that uses the power of games to define and support learning outcomes, where the child can think out of the box, so they are not restricted to particular thinking process. The concept of classroom is no longer limited to the four walls of a building with that space, infrastructure, volume, capacity limits. Learning takes place outside of the classroom. Well, and that game-based approach, it helps them to think in a different way. In this game-based approach, students mainly usually compelled, yes, they can think out of the box. And one more that I should here mention, that while they are learning the concept, teachers are teaching without stress, and they can enhance the curiosity. By themselves, they try to find out the key points from the concept, and they can share with their peer groups, and immediately they want to listen the feedback from their teachers. But yes, there are some drawbacks of this. Like if you are having 50 students in a class, 50 students, then definitely you cannot conduct all the curriculum based structure in a game based. So that time what happened, teachers is not able to focus on each and every child. This is one thing that we are facing in the class. Another
Ali,
thing,
we'll come to this. We'll come to this as that how it can, the classroom management and the discipline while we are implementing gaming. But, so very quickly, I want to now move to Tashu. Tashu, are you there? I want you to know, have you experienced in your school some kind of gaming activity, and how was that class different from a normal, a regular classroom teaching? And I'm sure if you could give us example of last 2 years, which was on virtual, or even before that, if you remember any experience. Yes, Tashu.
Good evening, everyone. Ma'am, I would like to say that we had quizzes like children in different rows were sitting together and questions were asked row-wise to everyone, and points were given to everyone based on the answers they give. And the one that wins, the row that wins, every student was given some kind of sustainable prizes like small gifts like chocolates and stationery items, something like these. And that created our interest to study more. And that was like, we do not break the discipline of the class during that, but we create the discipline by having quests and creating competition within and among classrooms. And we had gamified all our assignments so that we can easily understand things and wrote things for longer time. And when we gamify things, we remember them for more time. And game-based learning, students can learn with fun, and it creates an environment through this educational games that have elements such as engagement, immediate rewards,
Good.
healthy competition.
Good. Thank you so much. No, thank you so much. But Tashu, I would like, whenever I come to you, I would want you to please tell me and share your own experiences, right? Fine. I think a lot of gaming brings in a lot of involvement of the students, and it beats the monotony of one-way transaction of knowledge as per the traditional teaching learning process. Miss Indu, I remember, though the question is for Dr. Giridharan, I would want you to start because I remember you were talking at that time about, and you were very beautifully telling us the difference between gaming and gamification, because it's very confusing, and often, you know, we tend to use these two, game-based learning and gamification, lightly. So I'm sure our audience would like to know, number one, what is the difference between game-based learning and gamification? And how can, very quickly, educators use these both? Yes, Ms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Thank you, madam.
Okay, so should
Yeah,
I start?
Sir, I think let Ms. Indu start, set the role, because she had started, and then we'll very smoothly come to Dr. Giridharan for his expert and top advice. So gamification would be your explanation. Yes, Ms. Indu.
Yeah. Okay, so, you know, I spoke about game-based learning, you know, wherein we add on games to our teaching pedagogy, you know, to kind of aid understanding by the students. You know, for example, let's say if I'm also a literature person, you know, so for me it comes more naturally, you know, when I talk about my own subject. So, for example, you know, we have read one chapter, right? You know, so we want to kind of discuss that lesson, you know, with our children. So instead of teacher explaining it, you know, and some children participating, some are not participating, you know, one very standard format of a game would be role play. Another could be, you know, hot seat, you know, wherein we could have the author, you know, sit and kind of answer questions, you know, which could be posed by some press reporters, you know, so they get into the role, characters, you know, ask questions and learn, you know, in the process, you know. So this is like, you know, creating a game out of your own context, you know, the content that you are teaching, right? So when we're talking about gamification, you know, it's the entire lesson, the content is converted into a game. You know, again, I will come to my own subject. You know, for example, let's say I want to teach my children to write a poem, all right? So, you know, I would maybe in my classroom, you know, I would give them some keywords, etc., tell them to write down. But, you know, when we talk about gamification, you know, so there's this Minecraft, you know, so I'm sure many of you have heard about it. So, you know, there is a game called 6-Room Poem, right? You know, so here children would actually navigate through those 6 rooms and observe, hear, smell, etc., and write down a poem, you know, whatever they are seeing, hearing, feeling, etc. You know, so the same thing has been converted into, it has been gamified. So, you know, the difference is that now in gamification, from one level to another, you know, you achieve one level, then you go to the next level, there are rewards for it, and then, you know, your name gets mentioned on the leaderboard, etc. You know, so gamification is a step ahead of game-based learning. Yeah. So I could talk more, but then
Yes. Thank you so much. I think you've explained me very beautifully, and I'm sure so that was really wonderful explanation of game-based learning and gamification, how you convert the content into a game that gets to gamification. I hope I am right. Thank you so much, Ms. Indu. Yes, Dr. Giridharan. Now, how would you just let us know more about gamification? That is something. Can a teacher pick up a content and convert it into a game, and per se the definition of gamification? Yes, Dr. Giridharan.
Okay, thank you, madam. So it is now, as you mentioned, the gamification, it is not restricted, it is converting any activity or learning, whatever the learning you are planning to do in class 1. If you are able to convert everything into a game, as you mentioned, earlier speaker mentioned that one, converting any learning outcomes through completely done through the game. So then it comes in gamification. Is it clear, madam? That is what I'm telling.
Yes. Could you just give us an example, suppose? I mean, very quickly, if it can be otherwise. Yes. Yes.
So generally, in the other way, what I say is that gamification, we are fitting a non-game contest or the learning into the
Right.
game. And people who are involved in learning in the one, they feel as if they are playing the game. But actually, they are learning the outcome. Finally, end of that will be their learning outcome will be what they have expected goal that will be achieving it.
Right.
But only difference, another difference is that in gamification, there is extrinsic motivation is there. Extrinsic motivation is there. For example, like rewards, points, they are all being given as some of the motivations.
Okay. Right.
Whereas in game-based learning, it is intrinsic nature. It is intrinsic motivation. It is immersive learning.
Thank you so much. I think yes. Thank you so much. There is so much of clarity that I have gained, and I'm sure our viewers would have gained this too, that it is more about extrinsic learning where there is rewards, there is points that happen in the gamification. Ms. Bushali, would you want to talk about any example which is there and how you have tried to convert your content into some kind of game and using the elements of gamification? If
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, gamification is the primary focus on the teaching process, whereas game-based where primary focus on games itself. Suppose in class 10, there is a chapter in science that improvement of natural resources. So where teachers are teaching the forest, suppose they are teaching forest. So sometimes students feel very boring. That means only the lecture method is there. So if you do one thing, suppose you are providing the maps to each child in the class and ask them to point out the sanctuaries, reserve forests, and different hotspots. So what happened? The children will come to know about the position of that sanctuary, reserve forest, as well as they know the name of those areas. So what happened? It's a subject, both the subject like geography as well as science, they can collaboratively, they can learn about these two things, as well as they come to know about the different areas, the diversifications of these animals, plants, everything from that chapter. Similarly, if I take one example for lower classes, suppose teachers are teaching about the birds of indigenous species as well as exotic species. So only teacher has to draw the outline of that bird, and then the teacher will ask the students to color whatever they have taught in the class. So what happened? The analogy they will come to know about what type of birds are there, which are available, which are indigenous, which are exotic in nature.
I think that's a wonderful take on how to create an integrated game on a content which is both in science and geography. Thank you so much, Ms. Bushali. Yes. Thank you so much, Ms. Bushali. Now, this very fact brings me to Ms. Kirti Tandon. You know, we are talking about games, and why not? Or can we use games as learning activities for homework? Because most of the time it's heard that parents are cribbing that so much of difficult homework is being given. If you give an exercise to be solved from the back of the chapter, the parents again are, pushing the teachers against the wall that, you've asked us to explain. If the teacher gives more creative work, trying to do a project, then they say that the teachers have given an overambitious project. These are normally the complaints that the parents have. So my question to you is, what do you think of games as homework or learning activities? And could they be used as assessment strategies, ensuring that the homework is being done by the student and not by the parents or by the elder siblings? Yes.
Honestly speaking, when you talk about homework, definitely, as I said, the number line was one of those examples. But the idea is that the teacher should first determine the particular purpose of that game-based learning. What is it that you're trying to kind of propose with that, and also how much that will enrich the child. Because at the end of the day, parents are involved these days, children are involved, there are so many other people. So there has to be a proper planned out way in which you meet out a homework to a child, because otherwise it will not really kind of come to fruition. Maybe you have visualized it in a different way. In a classroom, you may be able to manage it, but will it be possible in a home surroundings or in that homework scenario? Will the child be able to kind of do full justice to that? So those are a few things that the teacher has to keep in mind. And first of all, the teacher should actually play the game herself, honestly speaking, at home, and try it out. Is it possible? And then whether how much control is required, and the parents, of course, what you're talking about, and how much the child will be engaged, how much time will it take for, and then take it forward. It could be done in groups. If you could have a kind of you could create groups of students, and then they could be kind of coming up, and then there could be some kind of a game like that. Or because the time consumed with gaming is definitely, I mean, if you give them some kind of a homework, like a puzzle that you have created, or a crossword that you have personally created, there are a lot of websites which help you create and have a copyright of your own crossword, and that can be worked out with children, and they love to do those crosswords, and that can be mailed to them, and at home it can be used as a homework tool as well, and it can be marked as well. So either or. So that is one thing. Apart from that, we have to you see, gaming is something, it is I would say that it gives children a lot of confidence, and gaming is something that you don't leave in between. You keep going back to it over and over again. They might read a chapter and just let it be. But if you ask them to play a game, they will go back to it over and over again. So when you kind of connect academics and gaming together, it will be something that the child will go back and revert to again and again, so till the time he succeeds, or is able to kind of achieve something really concrete out of it, or is able to complete the goal that has been set up for him. And everybody, multiple intelligence, I mean, like we have different learning abilities of every child, so everybody can play the same game. One child may take an hour to do it, the other may take 1.5 hours, but at least at home they are at liberty to do it their way and within their own stipulated time that they've given to themselves. So that way, giving it homework would be a good idea, definitely, and it can be managed. It's not something that we've not been doing, as all the panelists have kind of mentioned. It is something that has been going on over a period of time, and definitely involving them in some kind of games keeps them more motivated, keeps them on, they're more alert, and their response is far better than giving them simple questions and answers to attempt. So maybe identifying or
so much.
what kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I think very well said. That's very important, that we can integrate games into as a part of homework, but then we also, as educators, they need to understand that, one, as you said, they should try to do it themselves. It should not be an over-ambitious project. It should be age-specific, and it should be collaborative. These are the few parameters. If teachers take cognizance of these parameters, I think parents will encourage, and parents will be happy about gaming be introduced into the teaching learning process. Moving on to a very technical question, and this question I would like to ask Dr. P.K. Giridharan. Sir, research into the cognitive and socio-cultural aspects of gaming has exploded in the last decades, as people have actually begun to realize the potential for game-based learning, and not like in our times when they felt that playing games, whether we were playing Snake's Ladder or Ludo, or except for crosswords, nothing was encouraged. Or if we went out and were playing some outdoor games, then also it was seen as a waste of time most of the time. Some games aim to increase content knowledge by letting the players live the scenario. They may also create a sort of apprenticeship model in which players identify with experts and take on those roles as they move deeper into the games. Now, this is something very high order. I think can be implemented from, I think, a 9th or probably an 8th onwards. So my question to you is, in which subjects do you think games could be the complementary aspect? Do you think an integrated game could be designed to cover maximum number of subjects? And if you could give an example, it will be great. Dr. Giridharan, are you there?
Now it's okay. It's audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes, doctor.
Oh, okay. So now I just tell about which are the subjects, all the subjects. For example, now recently I've seen some of the on the websites. I've seen it one. In almost all the area they are applying games, not restricted to. I've seen science. They are applying for maths. They are applying for social science. They are even applying for the social and behavioral psychological aspect also they're using it one. So in every area they started applying it one. It's not, I was not limited to only to one subject or subject one. Everywhere they are started applying it now. It's not something specific to one particular area or some subject like that. It has been applied in every area, in science, even maths, even social science, even language learning, even as I say that even what you call as in competitive challenges. Even training in also they are using it. The games have been extensively used in learning. So I have seen many of the languages, many areas they are applied, not only for any maths. All this I feel, especially schooling, all the subjects they are applied. One of the another point why you asked about is where integrating all these different game aspect can be combined for different courses, different classes, subjects can be combined. You can collectively you can able to learn something. That is also possible. One example I can say is that game piece, world peace game. The one site is there. World Peace Game. The one website is there. That is Hunter. His name is
World Peace Game, you said.
Yes. World Peace Game.
I'm sure.
If you see the website of that one, there's a TED Talk also is there by Hunter. Also is there. Who is you can see that he has created such a problem. He has created a game such a way. This is not a digital one. It is a non-digital one in a classroom type of environment. He has kept different layers of all these elements of the game, and he has asked to solve the problem. Especially for example, one side economic, it covers a subject like economics. It covers subject like military. It subject like poverty. It's subject like so all these things is just solve the problem and give a food for all the poor countries. How we solve this problem like that. So this is
I think that's a very this is a very educative aspect when you talk about use of game-based learning when you're managing, world problems like water scarcity, food crisis. I mean, I think that will a lot of research has been on it, and I'm sure the audience would have made a note of World Peace Gaming website and the Hunter TED Talk that you're talking about.
And what is specialty of that one is that they all for the 4th grade, that is around 6th to 7th standard students, they are being 8th standard students given the environment, and they are giving their own different idea, which is not unimaginable. Okay, even they are saying, even their other advantage is that in that talk we see that one, the compassion for the fellow being, compassion for the poor, and helping. So this type of attitude also there is a lot of comes out from the students. There is entirely it is a multi-dimensional approach for the game. So it is one example of a very good example.
Which brings us to this that yes. which brings us also that multi-dimensional aspect. But before we move on to the next question, we have an input by Ms. Indu. Yes, Ms. Indu.
Okay, so, we are talking about integrating various subjects. I think that was your question, so which
Yes,
I had
yes.
asked Dr. Giridharan. So,
Yes.
integrating various subjects and doing, some kind of gaming activity. So since we're talking about offline and online, I'll give one example of both of them. So let's say, when you're talking about offline, right, so it's a very simple example could be, telling children to create a sustainable city or a city of their dreams. All right. So which would have maybe, they could just create it with the help of Legos, right? And this could include mathematics. This could include science. This could include social science. All right. So different subjects can be integrated in this. So we could talk about sustainability. We could talk about creating a city which has let's say recycling of water harvesting, a city which is not which has houses which are earthquake proof, a city which so dimensions of each of the houses. And these days we are talking about 3D printing and houses made by 3D printers. So technology also could come in here. So I think this could be a comprehensive integrated kind of activity, a game wherein children would use their critical thinking, their creativity, their knowledge, and create something of this sort. And when you talk about integrating technology with it, so there is this game which is called March Mammal Madness. So here what happens is this is created with the aim of educating children about biodiversity and endangered species. So children they play this game and they are kind of they have a camera and then they click pictures of different species of animals and trees and plants that they encounter, and understand, they get details about those species and get to know more about, the kind of diversity which is there in terms of flora and fauna. And also, they talk about conservation, they talk about, how to save the environment. So there are a lot of games, which are available, which have an integrated approach, wherein different subjects are integrated. So I just wanted to add to what,
Thank you so much. And I think this is such a beautiful example of creating a sustainable city, because if you come up with something like this, I'm sure it will integrate the various subjects and it will come out, talking about collaboration, talking about creating compassionate citizens, integrating with the various SDG goals. I think this whole sustainable city will have a beautiful. Thank you so much, Ms. Indu. Now, this is my last question, as we are really running short of time because the list of questions was very long. But this question, though it was for Ms. Indu, but I want this to be answered by everyone today. Now, the World Health Organization added a term, gaming disorder, to the 2018 version of its medical reference book, the International Classification of Diseases, because no one knows whether certain kinds of games are more likely to lead to problem of gaming. And we've seen various games which led to a lot of problems and put students in problems. Now, we are also aware that gaming or game-based learning as a pedagogical tool is a very, very powerful tool which enhances the various 21st century skills and creates a holistic personality. Now, how can we keep vigilant that our enthusiasm for learning through games is not becoming addictive? आप तो homework दे देंगे and the child will say कि मैं homework कर रहा हूँ, but वो कितनी देर homework कर रहा है? We need to monitor, we need to proctor that aspect as well. And also, what are those signs to watch for this this children getting addicted, because game is something so close to everybody's hearts. So if you are addicted to gaming, whatever it is, so how do we combat this? But each panelist will have just 1 minute. Then we move on to the round of our viewers asking questions to you. Yes, I start with Ms. Indu Yadav.
Okay, so I think, everything in life has to be in moderation. So wherever there is an overdose of anything, I think, that has repercussions. So the same thing goes for gaming also, so when teachers are, looking at gaming, so it shouldn't really be that all teachers, in the school, they just move on to gaming. I think, there has to be collaboration amongst the teachers also, wherein they sit together and decide, who is going to be looking at gaming, maybe in this month or in this week or in this fortnight, so that, the child is not really just doing gaming in every subject, or, as I talked about, integration of subjects, so teachers could sit together and even talk about, integration of subjects, wherein gaming is taught, as an integrated kind of topic, right? So that we can reduce the screen time for children and not really get them addicted to gaming. Yeah, so that's what I would like to say.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. To Ms. Kirti Tandon, yes, what would you like? How would you combat this gaming problem amongst the gaming disorder that we are talking about?
Yes, I know it's becoming a major problem with a lot of children because so much of screen time which is available to them, half the time when they're wearing headphones, even the parents are not aware as to what they are actually doing.
Yes,
And
yes,
so many times
yes.
while we are in the classrooms also, you see these, I would say, smiles which are there on their faces, which we know has not happened. They're not because of what they are being taught, because they are attached to another instrument with them, along with that. So maybe the laptop is there, along with that there is a mobile phone which is working side by side, and the class interaction is going on over and above the classroom, definitely. But coming back to gaming as a thing, yes, maybe if the school, I mean, right now we are kind of working in a way that gaming, whatever we are doing right now, we are focusing mainly in school. But if they are given little time, and as Ms. Yadav definitely said, that every teacher should decide and the departments should decide that which is their week, and everybody doesn't give them the games to play. So throughout the day they'd be playing only the games, and the parents will then be a little upset about this whole scenario, saying that okay, because this game has been given by A teacher and this by the B teacher. So that cannot go on. Definitely a little vigilance there is required. Vigilance on the part of parents is also required, because they need to understand what the child is doing. And maybe there are these certain, I know it's very difficult to kind of say the locks are there and all those things are there, but the child has to be, they have to be told the pros and cons. It should be the decision of the child. It should come from the child himself or herself, and they should know how much time they should be devoting to gaming. It is addictive, but the focus has to be brought back. So maybe a few times, I mean, there are times where you have these experts who talk about the negative impacts of being into this kind of a scenario. So those people can be brought and they can talk to them. Even the children can, the teachers can counsel the children about the pros and cons with respect to this. Anybody, the school counselors can be brought in. Even parents who have, the parents can talk to the students. The school can make the arrangement for the talks, so that there is some kind of a sensibility driven in the child himself or herself, so that they take the right decisions. And the amount of time that they spend, and they realize that it is simply time not, I would say well spent, but they should restrict it. And how much time should be given to them for actually to play games. So that should come from them, because counseling them, I think.
Yeah. Right. To Ms. Koshali, I will build upon what Ms. Kirti Tandon just said, that parents have to, monitor and, the screen time, which is right, which is absolutely right. But you as an educator in the class, when you give that kind of a gaming homework, and so how much do you expect, and how much do you think the parents will in real time check on to, because that's a homework. A homework is a homework which the school has given. So amalgamating both these arguments, because Ms. Kirti brought in a very, very valid and relevant point, but the reality is very different. So as an educator, what do you have to say to that? Because you're there in the class.
Before giving any homework, that too game-based, we have to make the student understand that what are the process, what are the pros and cons, as ma'am said, and we have to counsel them properly that this is the limit that you have to do it, and beyond that, if you are not able to do, you come to school, ask your teachers, you take help of your parents. And if you are talking about in a school, we have to conduct certain activities, then we have to divide the class as the class strength is more than 30-35. Usually this is happening in all the schools. So we have to group them in a small categories, and the teachers should take care of them. And another one thing, we cannot do the activities every day. Fortnightly or within a month, we need to talk to the teachers, like subject teachers, as you have told, that integrated, that means other subject teachers also help you to find out the ways to give them maximum to the children while doing this activity based or game based learning.
Right. So, but do you think, is there enough time for completing your syllabus, counseling the students, counseling the parents? Shouldn't it be gaming when you integrate gaming? It should be a kind of a white paper document which goes across. Let's hear what Dr. Giridharan has to say, because it is fine when we are talking about the primary and maybe the middle school, but it's what to do when we talk about the students class 9, 10 and above, and the undergrads. Yes, Dr. Giridharan.
Yes, madam. Yes, it is, as you mentioned on, it is difficult to monitor the games offline, especially in a house, in a home, they are playing it one, where they also have other activities to be completed. So in this case, what we generally, this game-based learning and this gamification, whatever we are doing it, as far as possible, try to do it during the class or in schooling times, not in the house. Because if we are, few can be given in house, they can go to home and do it. But most of times, if you are able to give it, provide it in free time during the school hours, that will be better one, so that we are able to see the effect, and also we can able to improve upon. Because what I am saying is that if they allow completely, then go to home and do it one. Definitely, in present scenario, I understand that even parents also, they are also very busy. They also, everybody is held up in so many things. They can't monitor continuously this one. So in some extent, we have to do it in classroom or in some time, Saturday, something they allocated for the type of some slots for them to do type of activity. Some extent, we can able to prevent this type of indulging in this type of game and fighting other responsibilities. So I feel that is
Thank you so much.
that is a better option. I feel, than instead of parents monitoring it, or student teachers completely giving it off to them, and then afterwards running chasing them is difficult. It's better to be in a protective environment, controlled environment. They can do it. That is where in the house school they can have a slot like Saturday, something remain. Then they can have conduct this type of game-based learning. Then that will definitely have a lot of impact, a lot of benefits. That will not affect anything in the students' side or in the teaching side also, academic side also.
Well, we heard our panelists talk and deliberate upon gaming not becoming a gaming disorder. As parents, teachers, school by and large, we all have to come together to combat gaming becoming a disorder, considering that gaming is an integral part of holistic learning program. Now, we come to an end to this, but before that, let me quickly check if we have any viewers who want to ask any particular panelist, any query they have. Yes, Kuika, do we have any participants who need to ask any question?
Yes, ma'am. We have Ms. Meenu Kaur with us. As we welcome the audience to ask the questions directly, we request you to introduce yourself first and let us know which panelist are you addressing the question to. So over to you, Ms. Meenu.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
My question is, ma'am, just because I'm English teacher and I'm taking senior classes, and in that case, my first problem is that I have to cope up with the syllabus, because we all know that how many tests are to be conducted at the internal levels, plus we have to make sure that the children are well prepared for their board exams as well. And that is first of my problem, like how can I cope up with so much of the syllabus and then adding games to it. And my second problem is that, ma'am, I keep on trying a lot for including many a kind of games like during my English teaching and all. But can you just suggest me any proper games which I can use for teaching them poetic devices or something like that? It would be very helpful for me.
Miss Meenu, can you please tell us the school you're from?
Yes, ma'am. I'm from Allen House Public School, Jhansi, and I'm English teacher there, and I'm working as a senior coordinator there.
Great, great. And your question is to?
Ma'am, my question is, I'm really sorry, the name of ma'am slipped out of my mind. She's also taking English, and I was listening to her the way she is telling her students to create a poem in the class.
Okay.
I'm really sorry for this.
That means your
I
question
don't remember
is to
the name.
Miss
Okay,
Indu.
all right.
Miss Indu.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
So thank you. Good evening. And it's a very valid question. In fact, so while we are discussing, about gaming as a teaching methodology, I think, we have a long road to traverse. So this is just the beginning for us, so while we are discussing these tools and we are talking about, how we are doing it, for each and every activity, I think, we'll have to delve deeper into the details of each and every, site or game that we have. But Minecraft offers, whole lot of possibilities. So if you could look at Minecraft, and this would it has activities for English also. So even if, the activities are not there, I think, if you have some IT teachers in your school, you could give them your specific requirement. And if they do know, coding, they could even create the games for you. So for example, if you're talking about poetic device, so it could start with a simple poetic device like, let's say, alliteration. So the child who identifies alliteration, gets points and moves on to the next one, which is like, repetition. So from repetition, the child could move on to refrain. So like this, there could be steps which could be created. So right now, offhand, I may not really be able to tell you, where exactly, would you find this kind of game. But this kind of game can be created. But at the same time, I would say just look at Minecraft and you might be able to find a game like this. Yeah.
I may just add on.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
There is another, there is a game called Jeopardy, and
Jeopardy also, yeah.
Is, very interesting because there you can create questions of your own. And
ma'am, can you just spell out? Can you please spell?
Yeah, it's Jeopardy.
ARPY. Okay, ma'am. GRP. Okay.
And it's Jeopardy, like a grid. It's like a grid with 100, 200, 500, up to 500. So what I have done, since you're talking about senior classes, this is about the elementary school. So I had kind of divided the questions paragraph or stanza wise, stanza 1, stanza 2, 3, 4, and then there was a bonus round. So in that, the simpler questions came first, and the class could kind of easily handle that. And it was a child's choice. Whichever, question they would choose, whether they would say stanza 100 points or stanza 3, 400 points. And then in accordance to that, the questions were framed. And the answers were also, it can be, you can type in the answers as well. And that helps the child, first of all, to understand. And the poem is discussed once in great detail, if you kind of, create something like that. So Jeopardy proved to be one very interesting thing for that particular poem for me. And then maybe, something like for keeping quiet, if you are talking about senior classes once again. So this was not an online mode, but definitely offline. So it just so happened that the Buddhist chants were played when the children were coming to class. And luckily the class was post lunch. and they were so, the kind of soothing music helped them to kind of sit down and be at peace with themselves. And then finally, when we took over the poem, things worked out for much better. So, I mean, it's not a gamification, but it is something that adds on to that particular poem. So you really have to think hard, and every time, every situation is different, every lot of students is different. One thing that is suitable for one may not be suitable for another lot. So it will vary. So be on your alert, I mean, be alert and look around and try and find as many games as possible. Things will work out.
So just to add to what Ms. Tandon is saying, so you could even do dumb charades, so when you're talking about, teaching a poetic device, you could do dumb charades with children, so that's going to be a game also. And plus, it's such an interesting thing to do in the class, and they would learn different poetic device, just with the help of this game. So, you could try this out.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I'm really I love this idea of Buddhist chants, because keeping quiet is such a poem, which I mean,
Pablo Neruda's.
Personally, yes, ma'am, I love it a lot. And the second, I'll try to find out something.
The impact.
Thank you so much, panelists, and thank you so much. And I'm so motivated to see the enthusiasm of our panelists. I mean, for a very long time, I was quiet and I was actually listening. And believe me, most of the questions that we have are for English or language skills to be taught through gaming. So we can't take more questions because of the paucity of time. We have, already exceeded our time. But from bottom of my heart, I thank each and every panelist, and I simply loved their enthusiasm. They were all at their best foot, and they had put their best foot forward when it came to actually counseling. And I'm sure this gives us that we may require another session for this. Candy toys and other priming forces triggered limited and brief bursts of motivation, but sparking a love for learning remains the bullseye. Everyone loves to play a game. And when instruction incorporates creative and multisensory myrmidons to combat and obliterate learning fatigue and frustration, even the most discouraged learners will rise to the occasion. Incorporating games, gamification, or game-based learning into your teaching doesn't require a monumental shift in your teaching styles. Many activities or active learning strategies, so many suggested by our esteemed panelists today, that you're likely to use some of the game elements discussed that we have today can be modified into even more effective learning tools. At the same time, gamification and game-based learning should not be implemented in a cavalier manner, but should be thoughtfully integrated into the course with some kind of monitoring by the parents, by the school, and by the educators. Thorough counseling of students is required. So let us build our classrooms as fun places that students will not miss for anything, with games as our pedagogical partner. We'll be back with some more interesting deliberations soon. Please keep writing to us and suggesting us the topics of your choice that you would like us to deliberate upon. Do write to us at info@edudevs.com. Thank you so much, Ms. Kirti Tandon, Ms. Indu Yadav, Mr. Dr. Giridharan, my dear Tashu, and Ms. Vashali for being part of today's discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.